I don't know who is watching this, but anyways, we are doing it for the history. We have, yeah, please go, don't worry. We have quite a few people here. It's our first stream in 2 years, I guess. And my name is Vyacheslav. I'm director of Chili Labs. And this is our office where we are hosting all the event. We have quite a lot of people sitting, hiding, and so there are some snacks. We are completely ready to start. And yeah, basically we will have 2 speakers. We will have a short break for the snacks. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask them on YouTube. And yes, any questions are acceptable. If you have questions from the audience, just raise your hand, and Darja or Maksim will make sure that your questions are answered. That's it from me. I believe that Darja has a word to say as well. Please welcome Darja, our first speaker.
Hello, everyone. Give me a moment to add my slides. Okay, can you see my slides? Okay, thank you everyone for coming. And today is an important day for us because we are relaunching Mobile Developers Latvia meetups. This is the first meetup for, I don't know, several years. And we are really excited to start them again. And this will be the first one of the season. And if you want to become a speaker for future ones, you can write to us in Mobile Developer Latvia Facebook group, which you can just search on Facebook or open via QR code. Or you can also directly write to me on my email.
You cannot see this. Yeah.
Okay. So today my first talk will be how to cook Flutter with chili. And I will tell you all about how we handle Flutter in Chile, obviously. And some boring facts about me. My name is Darja Orlova, and I'm an Android developer. And I've been developing Android since 2015, and I still remember Android 2, considering that now we have already Android 13 in developer preview. But for the last 2 years, I've been mostly working with Flutter, almost full time. And to be honest, Flutter has changed my perception of mobile development, and I definitely prefer it much more to native Android. Sorry, not sorry. And today we are meeting in the Chile office, and Chile is hosting MDL. And I myself work at Chile for the last 4.5 years. And what is Chile? Chile is a mobile agency, and we specialize in mobile apps. We do both native apps and, as already mentioned, Flutter apps, cross-platform. But we also have in-house teams of backend and web front-end developers, and we're also experts in mobile design. So we create turnkey apps. Basically, clients come to us with their ideas, and we draw design for them, we do development for them, and we do the release and support. So basically, the whole flow of the app development. And Chile has started with just 2 developers in 2016. This year we will be 6 years, if my math is correct, in May. And it has started with 2 developers. And to this day, we already have 28 employees and more coming. And we also have more than 50 finished projects, which most of them are mobile apps, native and Flutter, but we also have finished some web solutions. And with this in mind, we have already created more than, not created, but actually released more than 10 Flutter apps. And at the moment, about half of our app development is done in Flutter. And the agenda for today is we will discuss why Chile actually does Flutter. Then we will look at some of the use cases, and we'll also look into how actually we use Flutter from the technical side and tap a little into how Flutter works for pet projects. Okay, so why Flutter? I think that the best explanation of why Flutter was given by our CEO on one of our meetings. And what he said is that 1 year ago, we had to explain to the client what is Flutter, but now clients come to us because they want Flutter. And Flutter is the first cross-platform framework that we have adopted in Chile. We did not find previous cross-platform solutions good enough for our development, so Flutter has changed this. And also some reasons why we do Flutter from the development side is, of course, because of cross-platform, the development is faster, and not only because of actual code, but also because of design and testing, because you need to kind of handle one platform only. In our designs, we usually do somewhat custom design, which is done both in Android and iOS apps. And before Flutter, we have always started with one platform ahead of the other, so that, for example, we have started a new project and we started with Android version so that they can learn all of the problems beforehand, so that the team that will be doing iOS won't need to duplicate all of those errors, or vice versa, dependent on the project. But now there's no need for that, because basically both apps are developed at the same time with the same code. And of course, this makes the maintenance much easier, because for smaller projects, it's enough for one developer and one code base. You need to handle only one code base, and this can be done by one developer. Of course, cross-platform and the easiness of Flutter results in cheaper development, cheaper for the client. And also, Flutter has proved itself amazing much further than just the MVP stage. It's perfectly fine for actual full-scale projects. Okay, so with Flutter selected, let's see some use cases that we have already launched. I divided those use cases into several types of projects that usually are good for mobile development in general and for Flutter specifically. And first category of those projects is platform expansion. So basically products that already have at least one successful platform, usually it's a website, and they want to expand their business, and one of their first choices is to create a mobile app for that. One of our clients for whom we created a successful Flutter project is Bandora. Bandora is a European fintech. They're based in Estonia. And their problem was that they had a previous application, but it was hard to maintain and it wasn't really working well. So they wanted to recreate the app from scratch. And this time they decided to go cross-platform instead of native. And they came to us. The designs and the backend was provided by the clients. And because they really liked how we did our first project together, we are now developing more apps for Bandora also all of them are with Flutter. And to launch the initial version 1.0 that had all of the basic features so that we could stop the previous app, it took us 2.5 months. Chile is an expert in fintech solutions, so we have several of those, also in Flutter. And one more successful use case is Builderlinks. And Builderlinks is a neobanking platform. They also had already a successful web-based project in many countries, so they decided that they want to expand to mobile. And this time, the design and the backend was also provided by the client. And this is one of our biggest projects in Flutter. It started in 2020, and it's still in active development. And more features are being developed, and more bugs are being fixed. And it took us 4 months to create the initial version 1.0. The next category of applications of businesses that want applications is those businesses that already have some solutions offline and they want to utilize it or automate it. And one of those use cases is an app for LTAP. So it's a motor insurance app, and it has a lot of features that used to be done by hand, by filling in papers when you had a crash, for example. And now it can all be done in the mobile app. The client as well had a previous version of this app, but it wasn't working really well. So our designers did a UX research, full redesign, and also, of course, full development of that app. And the interesting perk of this application is that it supports also Huawei platform, and it has a separate store, and not all of the services are available, for example, from Firebase. So we had to plan the architecture and everything to support different implementations. Another one of those businesses going automated is a business called TopUp. And this was all fully done by Chile, designed by Chile, backend by Chile, the admin website by Chile, apps by Chile. And also an interesting thing about this application is that it has it consists out of two apps, the client and the partner app. And the idea of this application, this business, is that from one side you have clients that are business owners, and for example they launch parties or events and they need waiters or other gig based staff, and just for this event, for example. And the other part is the partners who are freelancers and they want to just work in gigs and not in a specific company, so they can search for those gigs in TopUp app, apply to them, and work. And yes, TopUp partner is the second part of this application. Because of Flutter, we have a lot of code shared, and so basically we have one code base for 4 projects or 4 apps, which is TopUp Business, TopUp Partner, both for iOS and for Android, and it results in much less code if we have went native and for different implementations. And it's also a really big of our projects, and it's been ongoing since 2020. It took a whole year for version 1.0 because we did not launch an MVP. We actually launched a full-scale product with a lot of features. It was fully functioning for version 1.0, and our big testing was done in May 2021, I think, when was the ice hockey championship in Riga. And it proved itself really great, worked and everything. And also I have special feelings for this project because it's my first Flutter project in Chile. And the last category of businesses that prefer Flutter or cross-platform for their solutions is, of course, startups. And one of those startups is Crochet App, which is an app for crocheters. Basically, it's actually an app of our CEO, Slava. And it's a really interesting app in that sense that it has custom patterns which crocheters can then work on, and it has unique content, and it's really cute looking also. And the design was done by Chile, and we also won awards for this design from W3 and Red Dot. And also, because this is a startup, we used as less resources as possible, and we did not go with a custom backend. We went serverless, and for that we used Firebase. And we actually use Firebase really extensively in this application. We use storage, real-time database, authentication, push notifications, and a lot of other features that Firebase provides. It's also still in active development since 2020, and it took about half a year for the first initial launch. Okay, so Flutter is great for many use cases, but maybe there are some use cases that Flutter is not really great for. And there is a word said potentially in the slide, because to this day, we still did not have any clients that we said, no, let's go native instead of Flutter. And also we have no clients that were sorry that they chose Flutter, but just maybe, depending on the use case, we may have said no, we might say no if the app requires something very platform specific or something very hardware specific, or it performs a lot of background work. Saying that doesn't mean that Flutter can't handle those things, but depending on the use case, it might sometimes be easier to do it native, because with Flutter, you would still need to write a lot of native code too. Okay, and now let's move on to the main course, how to cook Flutter with Chili. And we have some criteria when selecting tools, approaches, and architecture. And first of those criteria is that it has to be predictable and have no side effects. Otherwise, it will be hard to debug and hard to manage in general. The next, it should be easy to maintain, meaning to add and remove features, swap libraries, upgrade new SDKs, release new apps versions, and no legacy as possible. And also a really important thing, it should be really easy to onboard new developers, because we are a project-based company and we can swap developers, plug them out and in from one project to another project. And if we have similar approaches and architecture, then it will be easier to swap those developers rather than having something super custom and different in all of the projects. And with those years and experience, we have recently created our base project with all of the approaches that we selected for ourselves that really work for us. And this base project contains theming, localization, architecture, linting, state management, design system, and also some really common features. And this really speeds up the onboarding and the development of the initial, when starting the new projects, their initial launch. Now, every app starts with the design, and our approach to design is using the design system. And design system is a really great tool for having a conversation between developers, designers, and product owners, because it means that there will be no ambiguity, designs will be consistent, and it's easier to add new features and handle all of these states like scrolling, button press, disabled, and everything. And the app looks smooth and development is easy. And Our designers have really evolved how we approach creating those design systems. We started with basic UI kits, and now we do full-blown design systems with navigation and everything. And our designers are also mobile-oriented, so that means that they always keep in mind the material design guidelines, the human interface guidelines. But keeping that in mind, our designs are still quite custom and exciting, and also mobile friendly, considering all of the mobile navigations, dialogues, and mobile specific interactions. And as was already said, for our designs, we got the Red Dot Awards and W3 Awards. Now the best part, the app architecture. So first of all, I want to say that not every app initially needs architecture, and you don't always need complicated architecture, and you really need to start with small and then move on and find solutions to your problems and not problems to your solutions when talking about architecture. Also, not every architecture that you've heard about may work for your project. So what we learned works for us, but it doesn't mean that it will work for every other project or approach or team. Having said that, we approach architecture in layered way, and our layers usually consist of the clean architecture layers, such as presentation, data, and domain, and the dependencies between them is that domain knows only about business logic, data has all of the implementations of the business logic, and basically presentation layer interacts only with domain and knows about data only through dependency injection. And in Flutter, we follow the repository pattern. So we basically have repositories for managing features. And on the presentation level, from page to page, from feature to feature, for state management, we use the block pattern and also the Flutter block library. And it works really well. Okay, I'm sorry. It works really well for us. And because we are used to unidirectional data flow patterns for state management, and block is a really mature library with a great documentation and really great maintenance. And also it really works for us for the application navigation and flow. And we usually create, this is really rough because it depends on the use case, but it's usually one block per feature, which a lot of times results in one block per page. And for handling state inside the state management, we follow the segmented state pattern. That's one of the names for this pattern. It also can be called a triple state pattern, and it's not specific to Flutter. But usually we have 3 states: loading, error, and success for any data that we need to load, so that there won't be cases when it's both loading and error or both error and success. So this is not possible with this pattern, and it works really well when most of the work that you need to do is just ping API back and forth. Yep, with architecture, that's all. And for network and for models, I'm sorry for this slide. I had no creative anything for this, couldn't make anything. So because of Dart and not support for any equality, you have to write everything yourself. We don't like that. We use Equitable for that, for object equality checking. And we also use JSON serializable for JSON's realization to create API models. And for networking, our HTTP client is Dio. It's simple, but it covers a lot of the use cases. It's not as mature as HTTP clients in native platforms, but it still works pretty well out of those that exist in Flutter. For local storage, we have different approaches because the data that can be stored is really different. its persistence is different, its security is different, and for something really lightweight, we use shared preferences. When something needs to be stored securely, we use Flutter secure storage, such as for tokens. And if the data does not require SQL, then we use a Hive library. And if the data does require SQL, then we use SQLite or Floor libraries, depending on the project. For localization, it's a really important aspect of mobile apps. For example, in one of the apps, we have support for 24 languages, and that support is really important. And because of that, the localization is remote, meaning that we don't need to update app in stores in order to change some translations. And for that, we use a service called CrowdIn. It proved itself really great, but the problem with that was that there was no Flutter libraries for it, so we wrote one ourselves. Hopefully, some days we will open source it when we will have more time for that. And for local localization, some time ago, at the start of the development, we found the library Easy Localization, and it seems to be working pretty well for us. Although there are many libraries right now in Flutter that pretty much handle localization in the same way, but we go with Easy Localization. Another one of services that we use like really extensively is Firebase. Sometimes we use it as a backend, but also when we don't use it as backend, it still provides many great features for mobile applications, such as analytics, crosslytics, app distribution, remote config, and recently we also have started using performance monitoring for network requests and A/B testing links, dynamic links, and push notifications. And for more hardcore stuff, we can also use Firestore, real-time database, and file storage too. Okay, so for a company that works on a lot of projects simultaneously, it would be impossible to assemble all of the versions and pass them on from one developer to QA to clients and so on manually. This would be a pain and really stall the development. So of course we extensively use the CI and CD tools, and we have set up pipelines for different flows. One of them is pull request. We ensure code quality with pull requests that require all unit tests to be not to be failing, and also all of the static code analysis tools to be not even having info level warnings. And pull requests can't be merged unless all of this is successful. We also have, of course, pipelines for the quality assurance team so that they can assemble different flavors, different logging levels, and everything. And once the build is approved by the QA, it goes to the client, and we have specific pipelines for that too. And one of the best things is that release to the stores is also automated. So basically, when we have a new release, we just need to press a couple of buttons in the CI client, and it's just creates and uploads the builds to the stores, both to Android and App Store. And for all of that, we use Bitrise. We have tried many different CI and CD solutions, but so far Bitrise proved itself to be the best one for us. It has a really intuitive UI. It's easy to use, and it's really customizable. We can do and set up all kinds of flows and pipelines there. Flutter is almost perfect, but it also has a couple of problems. It has Flutter-specific problems that can sometimes embarrass us in front of the client. For example, not so long ago, there was a bug on recent iOS versions that if you have a text field on your initial screen. Then every time you open it, there will be a toast that says some content has been copied to clipboard, even though it hasn't. And the only way to resolve that problem was to wait for Flutter to update to new version. Also, there are some specific Flutter problems that don't have those solutions yet, so we have to be aware of them. And the most painful thing, if you have started Flutter before Dart supported null safety and you need to migrate your project, then you will have problems, not just because of the migration itself, but also because you need to explain to the client why you now need at least 1 week to make no feature changes, no bug fixes, but just migrate your code, and then also quite some time to do full regress testing to make sure that everything works fine. But without migration to null safety, it's a pain to continue to work on Flutter applications because a lot of the problems have already solutions in the newer libraries that support only null safety. So if you're starting Flutter in 2022, then you're much luckier than we were in 2020. Also, important thing about our mobile developers is that we all specialize in at least one of the native platforms. And besides specializing in a native platform, we also all have experience with Flutter. Usually we have from 1 to 3 developers on one project. And we also take interns with no experience at all in mobile development, for example, from the universities, or if they just apply via our website and they start working on real projects straight away alongside more experienced developers. And our approaches make it easy to onboard them and to teach them on real-life projects. And I've also conducted developer interviews with all of the developers in Chile and found out some interesting findings about their satisfaction with Flutter. Of course, iOS developers don't like handling Android-specific problems in Flutter, and Android developers don't like handling iOS-specific problems in Flutter. But this is not a problem, but a feature of a cross-platform framework, because you do need to handle both platforms. And the top things that developers like about Flutter is hot reload and hot restart, and also, of course, the declarative UI approach. Although, of course, I've heard from iOS developers that Swift UI is also great, and I think Jetpack Compose is not that mature yet, so can't say that for Android, although I do not have experience with Jetpack Compose. But yes, declarative UI is really great and nicely done in Flutter. And then a lot of other things, it really depends, because people that have background in languages such as C++ like Dart. People that have backgrounds in such languages as Kotlin and Swift don't like Dart that much. And yes, some people like cross-platform, some people don't like cross-platform. But one thing that I noticed is that Flutter is really appreciated by developers that have their own pet projects. As one of the developers said, you develop an Android app and you basically get an iOS app for free. And with that, let's talk about a little how Flutter works for pet projects. And with pet projects, it's harder to manage them because you have no managers to poke you about your progress, and you need to plan your time yourself, and your timeline has to be realistic, because if you have plans for like many years, then you might struggle with another really important thing, such as motivation. And it's really important to be interested in the project that you are working on in your free time, because time spent on a pet project costs much more, because besides not being paid for it, you're also sacrificing the time that you could otherwise use for meeting with friends or with family or rest or hobbies or anything. So you really need to be passionate about the pet project that you plan to work on. And because motivation doesn't always stay for long, and sometimes procrastination takes over, to create a successful pet project, you need to work on discipline. And of course, with all that in mind, you need to have the right tools, because if you don't have the right tools, if you feel like you can't accomplish what you want with the tools that you have, then you will most probably not launch that project. And Flutter, especially in conjunction with Firebase, has proved itself like a superset for individual developers. And yes, with that, let's discuss some fun facts about me, because we have already discussed the boring ones. And one of those facts is that I love animals, and I have lived with 3 cats for most of my life, and I'm also a vegetarian for more than 10 years. And another fun fact is that I absolutely love makeup. But the problem with that is that there is such a notion as animal testing. And in order to be beautiful or have pink or red lips, sometimes animals have to suffer. So the problem with that is to find out which brands don't test on animals, also meaning that they are cruelty-free. You have to do a lot of research. There are organizations that give out certifications to brands, the status of being cruelty-free, such organizations as PETA or Leaping Bunny. And they all have their own certifications, but they don't have one place where to look for those criteria. So what we have in the market is a bunch of apps that look like the ones on the screen. And also they don't update regularly, and they don't work in all of the countries. So searching for cruelty-free brands becomes really hard. So that's when I remembered that I was a developer and that I have all of the internet in my hands, and maybe I can come up with a solution for this problem. And that was how the Bunny Search app was born. Bunny Search is an application that aggregates the data from all of those organizations, so you can search for the brand that you're interested in and check out its cruelty-free status, see if it belongs to any of the organization. Or also we have our own certification list where we manually verify the brands, sometimes the ones that are less popular and are not present in PETA and other popular organizations lists. And I was the only developer on this project. I've done it just in my free time, but I could not have done it without the help of an amazing designer who has created this beauty. I really think that it looks beautiful. And I recruited a designer from Chile, so maybe someday we will get an award for this project too. And also I have a team member who manages all of the data, talks to all of the organizations, the brands, and everything, because, as I've said, I'm just a developer. I'm not an expert in brands. So with a team of 3, in our free time, with no funding or anything, because this is a non-profit application, which sole goal is to help the consumers make the cruelty-free choice when shopping for beauty products. So yes, with a small team of 3 in our free time, we have created this application, which is available both in App Store and Play Store, and it's done just with Flutter and Firebase. So Flutter and Firebase are really great tools to work on your pet project and to actually launch them and finish them in a realistic timeline. So there were several challenges when creating my personal pet project, because I had no one to tell me what to do. I had to figure out everything myself. And the first problem was where to get the data from. because each of the websites of the organizations had just their websites. They did not have API, and their answer to where can I get maybe your data was you can just scrape our website, for example. And not all of those websites were working correctly, so it was a challenge of its own to actually aggregate this data. Then, of course, there was the problem to organize the data because, as I've said, one brand can belong to different organizations, but there is no one place where this information is stored. So we had to manage that too. And also, as a product owner, in my pet project, I've encountered things that I did not encounter ever in my daily developer life because I had to fill in all of the privacy policies, customer emails, and everything filled in the App Store and the Play Store. So it took much time there too. And of course, it was a challenge of its own how to plan the work and how to handle the free time of myself, of the designer, of the manager, and how to actually launch the project in time. But eventually we did it, and it took about 8 months of development in free time to get the data, to develop the app, to design the app, and to launch it. But yeah, it's now available in stores, and it's up and running, and it was really nice working with Flutter for my pet project. And in the tech stack, because I was, of course, inspired by how we do projects in Chile, I also use block pattern. I use Floor for SQL database. I use Firebase for my remote database. Also, I need local database because the app is offline first, of course, after you download the initial data. And for CI, I use Code Magic. And plans for the future is because for this project, the more users that I have, the less good enough a Firebase becomes for me. So I want to try a custom backend, and I want to try to write it in Dart because it has also libraries and tools to do that. I also plan to work with Flutter Web and create an admin panel with that to manage the data from the administrator side, and of course more features. Also, I'm not the only developer in Chile who has their own successful pet project. Our CTO, Tahir, has his own app called Grocery Easy, which allows you to create and manage your shopping lists and share them with your family and see all of the changes they make in live mode, and also support voice input and suggestions and everything, which he also has done in his free time. And another app creator is Shift Work Calendar that was also created by one of our developers in his free time. And the initial version that was created a long time ago was done in native. But once he has tried Flutter, he has created apps for both Android and iOS. And I think he's really happy with that fact. And yes, the Shift Work Calendar allows you to create and customize your calendar of how you work, because this is for workers who work in shifts. You can calculate and plan your earnings, see statistics, and yes, compare your multiple jobs or calendars. Okay, so thank you for listening, and maybe if you have any questions, I'm here ready to answer them. Urban Search, we have about 1,000 users, 1,000 installs, but I can't track users because we don't have any authentication there. So basically, all of the installs are users. No, I think it's around 30 or something like this monthly active.
If Flutter is so good as you're trying to tell us, why do the native developers?
Some of the things that developers mentioned was, first of all, they had experience with Flutter when it was not that mature yet. So the more mature the Flutter becomes, the easier it's to work with it. And yes, also because you need to learn different approaches and you're used to handling things one way and then you need to do it the other way. So this doesn't always work for everyone. Also, I note that iOS developers don't really like Android Studio used for Flutter development. So that's some of the reasons.
Do you think that Flutter is a feature and soon maybe in the future we're gonna get rid of all the
I really hope so. Well, okay. Flutter has recently become stable for Windows, and it now supports Windows, macOS, Linux, web, mobile platforms, and I think Fuchsia in support in future too, or already. I'm not sure. So they definitely going all the way with cross-platform. Um, and also, I think it's either at the same level or even more popular now than React Native, the previous most popular cross-platform framework. So it's really going fast.
At this moment, do you need some more additional knowledge about native platforms to work with Flutter? Like, can you go just 100% Flutter without knowing anything about native platforms?
Then could you please repeat the question? Sorry, I will get something.
Okay, so the question was, at this moment, can you work with Flutter without knowing anything in native platforms? And my answer is it depends. If it's just work with some basic REST API and you just need to show some UI based on that, then you don't really need to know a lot of native. Of course, you need to learn a little bit when uploading them to stores because there's some native specific things. But mostly no, but it still helps, of course, especially when you have specific native bugs caused by Flutter too.
How the Flutter is bundled into the app zero knowledge report. So let's say you mentioned there are fixes for bugs that you need to release every update.
Yes, if there's a new version of Flutter, you need to update your app to use this new version of Flutter, the new SDK, and you need to ship that new version of the app into stores. So yes, that's a bit of the pain point.
Is Flutter less performant than the native code? And if it is it significant?
Um, it depends again. One of the issues is that there's this shaders lag when you first launch the app on, I think, iOS. I'm not sure about if it's the same on Android, and it has chunks, and then it iterates and it works better with time. So there's that problem, but in my experience, no, I have not noticed Flutter to be less performant if done right, of course, than native.
How it compiles and changes files to the platform.
No, Flutter works with a ski engine, so it basically just draws on the canvas. It has no calls to the native views, so that's why it allows it to be fully independent of the native platform. So it just draws on canvas straight. You can embed native views too, but it's quite a problem and just needs to be a really specific use case.
I think no more questions today. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. My name is Maksims Pelna, and I'm Flutter developer. And my topic is theming Flutter app. It includes how we transfer UI elements from Figma to Flutter app, and also how one approach of how to switch the theme. We will start with transferring UI elements to Flutter app. And as Darja mentioned, we usually have the design system in Figma that contains some colors, some reusable elements like buttons or add bars and others, and also typography, all textiles that are used in the app. And if app have multiple themes, then we will need to handle this also in our app. there is example app of what I did to this presentation, and it is very easy app. All it does is just switching the theme, and all theming logic I will describe in the next slides. It is also available on GitHub, and here is the link in the slide. So why I choose this theme? Why I choose to write also my own approach and not to use some libraries? Recently, I faced the problem. I cannot remember what it was, but I can only remember that some libraries could not give me what I need. I will show you how to do it, as well as some visual examples. So, oops. Yeah. I'll show you some visual examples of this app, so it's easier to you to understand. Colors. In our apps, there is one big object that contains all different color groups. It can be text, primary, secondary, background, or as much as you need. For that object, there are as much factories as themes in the app, and in this example, there is only two, light and dark themes. And this object, background and primary actually contains color codes, and also with one factory per one theme. After that, these are passed back to app color factories. Next is typography. Usually we have one font family in the app. In this case, it's called Poppins. So this one is very easy. There is class name tab typography, and it contains all text styles that we are used in our app. In this example, there is only one called paragraph regular, and we also have default typography static variable that will return app typography class, where we are actually creating all the necessary text styles. And in this picture, you can see how many text fonts are used just in one screen. Yeah. Reusable elements. We create these ones and use everywhere. They are actually created when we start developing some certain screens where this element will be used. And there is nothing interesting, only this element's naming. In Chile apps, it starts with abbreviation that describes the app name. So whenever you need to use some reusable element, you just start typing abbreviation, and it becomes very easy to navigate through the elements and choose the right one. Now we need to wrap both colors and typography and for each theme, and for this we need to create app theme data. In this case, there is only two, light theme and dark theme, and it is very similar to color creation. There is also as much factories as themes in the app, and for each factory we pass color factory and typography static variable. If you also have different text styles for a theme, you can rework your app typography so it will be similar to app colors. And next one is main app. So the main app is the root widget that is created on each app launch, and it handles the main app routes. There is nothing special, just wrap your main app, material app, with the app theme manager. I will show how to create it later, and that's it. You also don't need to specify any themes in the material app. Over the main app, we have app theme that contains all app theme data objects that we have already created. And also one variable that chooses which theme to present. So we pass to constructor all app theme datas and one variable. In this example, it is called isDark mode. This is only because we have only two themes. And next we have static method that returns app theme data based on isDark mode boolean. We can see that we are extracting app theme named result, the same class where this method is created. And this is allowed only because our app theme is extended by inherited widget. And inherited widget is base class for widgets that passes information down to the tree. And whenever a super method update should notify returns true, it will update and notify the tree. In this example, we return true every time our variable isDark mode has changed. It is also listens app theme data objects, but in our case, they are not really changing. And the usage of this is very straightforward. If you can get that context from a widget, you can just call the auth method of the app theme and get all needed colors and typography, like the surface color or paragraph style. In order to switch app theme, we need to create app theme switcher. And it is also inherited widget. And we are passing theme repository that is responsible for storing choose theme. And we have also callback on theme switch that is called when the user switches the theme. So parent object can perform actions and update app theme that is used everywhere. There is static method set mode, where you pass the context from which we can extract switcher thanks to inherited widget, and mode to which user wants to change. After that, we are passing selected mode to theme repository and use callback. And this usage is also very straightforward. There you can see the button, you tap on it, and you just call the set mode from the app theme switcher. And your app should automatically update and switch the theme. And last object that handles everything related to theme, brightness theme from system and storage, is app theme manager. It is stateful widget, and there we use all previous objects: app theme data objects, light and dark, app theme switcher, where we are passing theme repository and use this on theme switch callback. And also app theme. As I mentioned, app theme should contain all the app theme data objects and also should have the variable that describes what theme to use. For this, there is method isDark mode. And this method isDark mode just watches what theme is currently chosen. And if it's system, then it watches the variable isDark mode from device that actually returns the user system theme. And this callback for switcher on theme switch, we just update the whole app state and update theme mode variable and also update overlay style. This one is for brightness or status bar of the app. And the last method that is called only once per app launch, because it is in the init state. This one needed to choose what theme to show after app launch. So we get brightness of the window that indicates what is system theme. Then we get mode from the app storage and set it to variable. And then we are setting brightness for status bar based on the current theme. And lastly, we have listener for brightness changes. So yeah, when this is called, it means that the user have changed the theme and you should automatically update. There is also a check for if the theme mode is system. So only if the mode that the system mode is the theme mode is system, you need to update the brightness of the app. There is a lot of solutions and approaches of how to use the switches. You can also use the Flutter theme mode class that is already inside the Flutter and not create additional objects. I just showed a different approach, and this approach allows you to use as much themes as you need it, not only 3 like system, light, and dark. And that's it. Thank you for your attention. Yeah.
So if that showed us how your theme managing is working. How could you create a theme changing with information like standing Telegram?
I personally have never changed the theme with animation, but I know that some libraries just make a screenshot of the current state. Then it shows the screenshot, and under the screenshot they change the theme, and then they just animate this screenshot. Yeah.
How popular is this that theme? Should every app has it?
It depends on the app. I don't know if your client needs to be with more than 2 themes, then I think you can use this approach.
Then yes, thanks Maxim for this short yet informative presentation. If there are no questions, I would like to share some updates from Chile. Basically, sorry, I will sit down so you can see my face. Yes, we are constantly looking for good engineers, good quality assurance engineers, and we started to look for backend developer as well, not only mobile. We want to expand what we can do. And yes, if you know someone of you or you wish to join us, then yeah, let us know. Write us in Facebook, whatever. Call me or send your CV to our email. And yes, come to next MDL. We hope to resurrect this format as pandemic is over, at least for now, and we can host them offline. It's first time when we did it in our office. It's pretty cool. Yeah, I actually did not expect that it would be so home-like, but yeah, also give us feedback on what you think. This is for people who will watch it eventually on the internet. We will publish everything on the Facebook page. We will publish everything to our website and social media. So if you have any feedback, if you want to do it anonymously or somehow else, just let us know. All right, cool. I think that's it. Then yeah, MDL 2022 is over.